In recent months, I have been thinking about getting my paperwork ready for citizenship, so I've been studying and reading about U.S. Constitution and the founding documents and the founding fathers and mothers, and been finding out a strange reality that is very much present in our first century as a country. You know, on one hand, we have these very high ideals and statements. All men are created equal, right? There is pursuit of happiness for everyone. So these statements of equality and justice are very uplifting, very optimistic, very idealistic. And on the other hand, at the very same time, we have these founding fathers who have dozens and hundreds of slaves. And I'm thinking, how did they reconcile making such statements as we are all equal, and the same day after 5 p.m. went to their plantation in Monticello and had slaves and many children of slave women? How was that possible, this disconnection between what we state as our ideals and what we live as our everyday reality? How couldn't they see that there is some hypocrisy in their life, that their statements and ideals don't match what they practice every day? Even if you think of Abraham Lincoln, he was not abolitionist from day one. It took a smart woman, right, to change his mind. It took Mary Todd, his wife, to nag and nag and nag and nag, eventually to convince Abraham that, you know what, it's about time we change our mind, dear Abe. And under Mary Todd's influence, Abraham Lincoln made a very public statement that here he is changing his mind. You know, if you are a man, it's not easy to acknowledge that you change your position. It takes humility and some balls to say, you know what, my wife convinced me otherwise. I was wrong, she was right, and now I am changing my opinion. It's never easy to say that under careful consideration and studying, I have come to this conclusion that I need to change my mind. It's very challenging, as a matter of fact, to publicly change your opinion on important issue. And slavery was such an issue. Abraham was risking losing his face and credibility when he changed his mind. Sometimes it takes us longer than a day or two. Sometimes it takes us longer than a month or a century to change our mind. I'm thinking of my countryman, of Nicolaus Copernicus. Have you heard this name? He was actually a clergyman of my home diocese. He lived in Toruń and Olsztyn, and he was the first one who tried to convince the church and the scientists that the Earth is not in the center of the solar system. Of course, he was duly excommunicated for trying to change the mind of the church, and so was Galileo a few years later. It took them about 400 years to change their mind that Copernicus was right. It wasn't until 1980s when John Paul II officially rehabilitated Copernicus and Galileo. 400 years? Could be worse, right? In Poland, if you go there with me one day, you will notice that Polish cows live very happy lives. Because in Poland, there are no fences. When a cow is let out in the wild, well, not literally, but almost, a cow is chained, let's say a 5 or 10 yards long chain, and grounded to the ground, usually with a big concrete block. So each day a cow has a radius of, let's say, 20 yards to walk around and eat grass. And next day the farmer moves the concrete block to another spot, and the cow has another 20 radius area to eat and feed. This way we don't need to mow our yards, our cows do it for us. But because of that being chained and unable to move too far away, we say in Poland that only a cow in a chain doesn't change her mind. Only a cow is unable to change position. Everybody else is free to change his or her position. If you are a cow chained to a concrete block, you are unable to change your position. If you are anyone else than a cow, you are entitled to change your position. Obviously, the two men from today's Gospels were not Polish cows. A father, Jesus says, had two sons, and he told the first one, "Son, please go out today, and work in my vineyard." What does he say? "Nah, I don't feel like it. I want to play video games." But after a while, what happens? He changes his mind. He thinks about it for a moment, and, well, I don't want to be grounded for a week afterwards, so I better go and do what my father asks of me. The other son does the opposite. His dad says, "Please go and work in my vineyard." The answer is immediate, "Yes, sir." But does he do anything? Nothing. He says, "Yes, sir," and does not stop playing his video game. Which one, Jesus says, does his Father's will? The first one, who said no and yet changed his mind. It is not easy to change our minds about things and issues we feel passionately about. You might have heard that these days in Rome, actually this week, there will be a big meeting of bishops to discuss all kinds of family life issues within the Roman Catholic Church. And Pope Francis has been ever so subtly giving inclinations that he would like some changes to take place. Pope Francis is proposing basically that divorced and remarried Catholics should be allowed eventually to receive Holy Communion. This is Pope Francis, let's call it agenda, a proposition of a change. Many bishops, many priests, many Catholics are very happy and supportive of this idea. But a week ago, 5 cardinals published a book in 6 languages, I believe, simultaneously, Imagine that. They had a book written and published at the same time in 6 languages. And that book proves why we cannot change our mind about divorced Catholics' communion. Guess who is one of the main authors? Exactly. Our beloved Archbishop Burke. He is making a very strong argument against Pope agenda, explaining that the Church has always believed that divorced and remarried Catholics cannot be allowed to receive Holy Communion, and hence we cannot change that part of our teaching. Well, let me think about slavery. The Church and the Bible has always approved of the slavery. For over 3,000 years, slavery was given. And it took it took Mary Todd Lincoln to change the mind of American public. The same argument could have been used. We have always had slavery. It's an unbroken tradition. Divorced and remarried Catholics had always been banned from Holy Communion. It's an unbroken tradition, right? We cannot change our mind on this issue, dear Pope Francis, says Cardinal Burke. How many other issues we have done forever and cannot change our mind? How about married priests? Actually, to be honest, for the longest time of the history of the Catholic Church, priests could get married, all the way from the 1st to the 12th century. So for the majority of our history, priests like me and others, and bishops and popes, had wives and children and grandchildren, and some of their children became bishops and popes as well, for a little bit of encouragement. So how many other arguments can we come up with, and statements and issues that we say we cannot change? How about women priests? How about same-gender marriage? How about a dozen of other issues that we say we have never done that and we never should? I am not saying that change is good in every single instance. I'm saying that sometimes we have to stop and think. We have to stop and talk to our Mary Todd Lincoln. What do you think about that? Is it okay for me to change my mind? Can you tell me something more about this or that issue? Can I learn something from you, Mary Todd? Can you help to educate me? What is a better way of doing things today? Remember, the son who said, "Yes, sir," did nothing. The one who said, "No way," changed his mind. So unless you are a Polish cow chained to a block of concrete, it is okay from time to time to change your mind.